Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Men Origins Wolverine, starring Hugh Jackman, Liev Schreiber, Danny Huston, Dominic Monaghan, and Ryan Reynolds. I'll talk about him, directed by Gavin Hood. Now, I was pretty excited to see this in the theaters that I went to a midnight showing of this, but I did have one question. Who was Gavin Hood? I don't know. But he did win an Oscar for Sozi. That was a foreign language film, but I never saw it, but I heard it's kind of melodramatic. So, what do I think of this? Well, let's get into it. We start with the young Logan, or as they call him, James Logan, or Howlett. That confused me half to death. Is sick, and his drunken father comes by in the 1800s, which I freaking hate to death. And Logan realizes that he's his father, and we get a Star Wars cliche when Luke finds out Darth Vader is his father. And I'm going to say it throughout the movie, this is a cliched movie to death. And his brother, a young Victor Creed, run with Logan and fight in wars with each other. And I'm thinking Logan is a puss. Not pussy, but puss. Because Victor, as an adult, played by Liev Schreiber, fires and kills all the Nazis. And Logan, as an adult, returned by Hugh Jackman, thinks that he's having too much fun and they've had enough. And I'm not liking Logan as much as the first 3 X-Men movies. And I'm thinking, I don't want to follow him any further in this movie. William Stryker, this time, played by Danny Huston, recruits Logan, bone claws and Victor's bad fingernails, on a special team along with Fred Dukes, who will eventually become the Blob later in the... Well, not later in the film, but Bolt, not the animated dog, but the one who can control electricity with his mind, and played by Dominic Monaghan, who I'm discussing him this week as well, also with this movie. Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, or should I say, not the real Deadpool, played by Ryan Reynolds, who I'll talk more about with the 2 real Deadpool films, Agent Zero, whose mutant power is bullets, and John Wraith, played by Will.I.Am from the Black Eyed Peas, to grab a fossil, and Logan walks away, and I'm thinking, he's a puss. I don't know what else to say, he's just a puss. Logan, 6 years later, dates a school teacher named Kayla Silverfox, played by Lynn Collins, who has a mutant power of controlling people with her mind. And these sequences are very boring, but 2 things happen here. 1. Stryker comes by with Agent Zero, warning Logan about somebody hunting down their old team, starting with Bolt, which is such a worthless character. And 2, Kayla gets killed by Victor. And this movie becomes a Mel Gibson or Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger cliche where there's this no personality but to love one woman and screams into the heavens saying, "No!" And screaming at the heaven, it's the worst and just pathetic. Logan versus Victor fight just looks like a CGI looking piece of crap, and Victor steps on the damn bone claws to break them, which is painfully bad, and bad looking, might I add. Stryker gives Logan the metal claws and new dog tags that say Wolverine, but the metal claws look like Roger Rabbit cartoony. It looked awful and terrible, and I got the story in X2 about Wolverine and how he got his metal claws from Stryker. I don't need to watch this movie in order to understand his story. The old couple that takes Logan in to help him by giving him some clothes and giving him their son's motorcycle and jacket, and suddenly they die, which is another Mel Gibson cliche, and the action is ridiculous. And Wolverine on a helicopter as it goes down and flies looked very cheap, to the point I thought it was a green screen taken over. And the whole not looking back at the explosion is an action movie cliche, and I hate it to death. Logan goes to John and Fred to find Victor at a boxing ring. When Logan called Fred Bub and B-U-B otherwise, and Fred thinks he says blob and misunderstands, it was just the worst excuse of misunderstanding ever. And Logan beats Fred's ass and finds something about an island and how it was a prison once. And a person named Remy LeBeau, aka Gambit, played by Taylor Kitsch. And while we get that explanation, there's one thing in this, one of the two things that I found bullcrap. One is Scott Summers in a class, or should I, and in case you don't know who I'm talking about, Cyclops. And Victor goes after him, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But I'll talk about the second one in a little bit too. So Logan finds him, and John goes with him, and before the Logan versus Victor round 2 fight begins, John runs into Victor and almost beats his ass until Victor claws him with his fingernails. And this fight is horrible and good riddance because John wasn't a good character to connect with. When the Logan vs. Victor round 2 fight begins, Remy/Gambit interjects in the middle of the fight and Victor gets away, and I'm thinking, Gambit, you are the worst character in this movie. Like, why are they making a movie about you coming out next year? Well, I'll talk about it next year. Remy takes Logan to Stryker's lab, and Logan, as he talks with Stryker, Kayla appears, and this is the second one of the bullcrap moments. You shouldn't have brought it. You shouldn't have brought it in the first place. And the other one, and I already brought up the Cyclops thing where he got captured by Victor that we saw earlier in the film. That was bullcrap too. Kayla's sister Diamond Girl needs rescuing as well as other mutants by Stryker. Logan and the fake Deadpool fight was a very stupid and very preposterous fight, including Victor saving his ass, and they fight the fake Deadpool back to back, and Logan cuts his head off, and Logan and Victor split apart, and Logan almost saves Kayla until Stryker shoots and erases Logan's memory, and he wakes up not knowing anybody, including Gambit. Or Remy, as I call him, I don't know. And we get a brief cameo by Patrick Stewart as Professor X, leading to save the mutants to his school, and Logan and Gambit split apart until the movie ends, which, how horrible of an ending. And 4 endings, and that was one of them. The second one was Stryker getting charged with the murder of a commanding officer. In the after credits scene, there's 2 of them. This is the third one. And this one was on TV. I haven't seen it in any other place. And the one where he's like drinking to remember, like, that was a worthless scene. And the fourth ending is the Deadpool shushing the audience, going, "Shh, don't tell anybody how bad this movie is." Like, which was pretty damn scary in my opinion. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 2.5 out of 10. I'm not connecting with any of these characters, including the fake Deadpool, and I don't know how many times I say cliche throughout the show, but I'm detesting how full of cliches this movie has. It's a cliched movie to death. And just the Roger Rabbit class, ugh. Just in this dialogue, ugh. So yeah, stay away from this one. And I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next week I will be back with X-Men First Class. And until next time,